Good. Call this meeting order. Please rise for the flag salute. I.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of board meeting minutes for March 26, 2025.
I'll make for the approval of board meeting minutes for March 26, 2025.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the board meeting minutes from March 26, 2025. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Approval of meeting agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve the meeting agenda. I'll second. Are there any changes or additions?
No.
Correction?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting agenda with no changes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Consent agenda.
I'll move for the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Sorry, I had a mental block. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
It's not really a discussion. I'll just say on a quick note that thank you to Mr. Olson for his contributions to our basketball team and school and whatnot over the last 4 years. That was great impact.
We should excuse Ryan.
I can make a motion. We excuse board member Christelli.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to excuse board member Castelli. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right. Doesn't look like we have any booster fundraisers. All right, discussion items, focus on kids, East Grace Harbor High School.
Thank you for having us tonight. I have with us Jeff Sowers, one of our teachers at East Grace Harbor, and two students he brought to share with you guys about an experience that they've had that's collaborative and together, and that is Isaiah Bush and Kira Seaman. Before they present, I just wanted to share with you that there's some things that we're in progress of doing. It's doing different attendance incentives to encourage our students to come to campus and to be there and engaged. And we've seen an increase of that. We're also working on a truancy board and an engagement board. And so we're working towards, again, connecting the dots with the attendance. And then Jeff and Bill, of course, are doing great things when it comes to combining things and really working teamwork together to bring in all of the different academics so that it's a hands-on, minds-on approach and the students get those real life experiences. And so that's what they're going to present to you guys tonight.
All right, hi, my name is Jeff Sowers. I'm at East Grace Harbor High School, and I'm really not going to do a lot of the talking. I'm just going to let the students do most of the talking. I'm going to show you the picture here. This is a picture from a field trip we recently took to the Washington State Legislature, where we met with Senator Wilson. So they'll talk a little bit about some of the conversation we had. These two students in particular did a really great job in having a conversation with the senator that went on for like almost an hour. It's a really interesting and great conversation. We learned a lot from that. So I'll let them share a little bit about that. And I really appreciate that they were willing to show up tonight and had the courage to do that. And without further ado, I'll start off with Isaiah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isaiah Bush, and I just wanted to discuss what we've been doing at East Grace Harbor High School regarding plastic waste and microplastic management, and basically how it impacts the environment. We've been using plastic products to build models and representations of marine life and other various creatures that have been affected by improperly disposed of plastics and stuff, and making these models, as well as going on a field trip to the Washington State Capitol, where we met with Jeff Wilson, Washington State Senator, which was very informal, also taking a tour of the Capitol. We got to see the history of when it was built, why it was built, why it took a longer time to build. Very informal field trip, altogether, learning a lot more about bureaucracy and the legislative, side of things, getting a real hands-on of, how the building's orchestrated on a day-to-day basis of all these staff members collaborating and doing a real good job of basically being effective in their work. And it was very interesting, very informal, like I said. And we've been also researching a bill, the EPR bill, which may or may not go effect in Washington State soon. And basically learning about that bill, very interesting. We got to go into the senator's office, discuss this bill and other bills regarding this. And I think it was very informal, but I think that we should keep this going as field trips because it might spark or invoke innovative minds to want to pursue this kind of career path, as well as, work in government official buildings and just spark ideas and bring new innovative ideas to Washington State. And I think that it was probably the most informal field trip I've ever had. So I think it was a really good use of educational time management for sure. And yeah, that's pretty much what I got to say.
That's good.
What was the EPR?
The extended producer responsibility law.
Okay,
But yeah, and it's basically talking about how they want to make producers pay for their production of plastics instead of so these factories get economic growth from actually recycling, because only about 5 to 6% of recycle actually gets recycled. So they want to make it economically worth it for these factories to recycle.
right.
Fabulous.
So that's pretty much what I gotta say, but it was very good, and I think that it should go on more every year.
Were you surprised at how much voice you had? With being able to speak to the senator of.
Yeah, he seemed like he wasn't just like cutting it off and just like, he's the head honcho. He had a really open mind to anything that the students had to say. And it was, kind of like, he was all ears and, wanted to hear from both sides of the spectrum, definitely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought it was really good and, just want to share it, as well as I wanted to say, Bill and Jeff have definitely been one of the best teachers I've had. They've been really, really good with like she said, with a hands-on approach to learning, all different sides of learning, and it's just, I don't know, it just seems like a better way to learn than just the standard curriculum, definitely.
Mhm.
So.
Awesome.
Thank you for being so well-spoken and using your inflection. It was a wonderful presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Kirsten. I have no speech written on my notes, but I have quite a few subjects that I wanted to speak on. So thank you for having me here. I'm honored to be able to do this. So today I'm going to be representing East Grace Harbor High. I've been a student here for 2 years now, and I believe I've been more successful and interested in classes here than I ever have been. Our teachers do their best to accommodate to every student's needs. I used to be a student at Elma High School, and it was insufferable for me. I never felt that my teachers understood me or even wanted to. Jeff and Bill always make sure to take time to ensure the success of each and every one of their students, which is something I've never experienced my whole school career up until coming here. We do lots of hands-on work, such as science projects or field trips to do water testing and many more. We also learn to cook and bake, which I think is an essential skill for people to learn. Currently, I'm given the opportunity to work on a pathway project, which if you don't know what that is, it's a project where it's a student-led project where we can study and research any topic that's important to us. I think this gives us students a sense of control that's very important. They always give their students an opportunity to use their voices. Speaking of which, I got to use my voice on a field trip to talk to the state senator. I talked to him about thoughts on certain bills and had a very mature agree to disagree conversation, in which he was quite impressed with my knowledge and understanding. We studied the bills weeks prior to see what was going to be happening with our state. I think it was an incredible experience and a incredible and once in a lifetime experience to be able to express my thoughts and feelings to someone who had such a bigger voice. I feel that the students in the School of East Grace Harbor get a bad rap.
Students are just trying to get by. Many of us deal with mental or physical health issues, and our teachers make sure to check in on us. I personally have mental health issues that have in the past, when I was a student at Elma High, made me feel so different, unwanted, and unneeded. I only have 2 teachers that genuinely made me feel like I was a person. But in East Grace Harbor High, since my first day, I felt that I was wanted, understood, and needed. I do have some concerns to express about our school. Our program is very different from the regular high school, as I'm sure you're aware of, but I feel as if you guys want us to change to be more like your school. Ever since we moved buildings, we've had many different rules change, which has made some students uncomfortable, such as not being served lunch in our own building. If we want food, we are required to go to the regular high school, which many of our students aren't comfortable with. I need you guys to please take a second to think, why is our school so different? Well, the main reason is not everyone is the same and people need different things to learn properly. Our school makes sure to check with each student what will make learning better and easier for us. We all have different school plans which accommodate to our different needs. I think it's very important that students are listened to when they express what they know is best for them. Something I have yet to experience at Elma High School. I truly have done so much better at East Grace Harbor High than any school I've been to. In Elma High School, I felt like a fish in a tree expected to fly. But here at East Grace Harbor High, I'm able to be a fish in the water and thrive more than I ever have in a regular school setting. Thank you for your time, and I hope you take my words into consideration.
Thank you.
Here, just out of curiosity, what have you tried cooking?
I've made many different muffins. I've baked a cake before, and I haven't cooked anything yet, but I cook a lot at home, so I have this.
Thank you for imparting what you've learned and also the not so pretty stuff that, you know, not a lot of people like to talk about.
I think that it's very important.
I appreciate it. You know, I value the fact that you are understanding when you are and are not hurt. So thank you.
It's important for us to hear the real, not just get up there and tell us, you know, what we want to hear, right? It's very important.
Just know you are wanted and needed.
I know that now.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have some. Okay. All right, so next on our agenda is Summit Pacific Medical Center. Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, it's okay if Commissioner Drew Hooper joins me.
Absolutely.
I was gonna compliment these young students for getting up here and presenting. That takes courage. So, that's one. Same with the hospitals. Well, I'm Josh Martin, and this is our board chair, Drew Hooper. Hello, thanks for having us today. You know, I'm gonna start here. What brings me here today is actually, it's a very long journey. But it's a very important journey, a pivotal time, I think, for our community. And I'll start with the why. Actually start here. So Summit Pacific, our mission is in partnership with our community, we passionately advance the health of all individuals with an emphasis on quality, access, compassion, and safety. That's the bedrock, that's the foundation. Our vision is a very bold vision, is that through Summit Care, we'll build the healthiest community in the nation. And it's a very bold vision because I'm going to give some statistics to tell you that we are far from it. We have a long ways to go. The way that I think about Summit Pacific is it's a three-legged stool. You know, we have the community, which we bear the weight to support the needs of that community. The legs of the stool represent different parts or aspect of the health system, which is well-being, a big focus of Summit that you'll find very different than many other hospitals. Is a focus more on prevention and lifestyle, more community-based care. But we also have a hospital. We provide 24/7 life-saving services. And we're stepping more and more into medical arts, which is more of a specialty focus, cardiology, gastroenterology, and we kind of refer to that as a system of health and well-being. So now I'm going to go back and kind of share our vision in action. So this is really a great kind of example of what vision in action looks like. Is a 60,000 square foot transformational wellness center. First of its kind in the country, fully funded by U.S. Department of Agriculture. No tax on our community to pay for this. in a place that, you know, isn't really, I think, an idea when people think about hospitals, even in this community. Most rural America is the hospital is where I go when I'm broken and I need fixed. But by then it's too late. So our board gave the directive and the vision, and we set forth to build this hub that really starts to transform the model of healthcare as a place to go and be well, especially for our youth. And I'm going to talk about that. So you see, we have a playground. I was approached by a community member when we were building and designing this playground. What in the world is a hospital doing building a playground? It's a fair question. Well, in a sick care environment, you're right. I mean, we just need more beds and more hospitals and more ORs and more doctors, of course. But in a vision of building a healthier community of future and focus on prevention and well-being, why doesn't every hospital have a playground? That's my question. So we're leading by example. And I just wanted to celebrate and highlight something that says, first of all, thank you for your service, you know, as elected officials and your service to this community. My mother is a public school teacher for 39 years. And I know what she did to serve and raise a generation. I was one of them. I'm here to say that it's a wonderful thing when you have an administrator of a hospital who is raised by a public school teacher, because then you start to identify how to integrate, you know, knowledge and education and really the ability of bringing our community together to help raise families, you know, as a community, not just as a family. And with your help, we were able to do something pretty innovative. First of its kind that I've ever heard of is we worked with you on a grant, remnants of COVID, to implement a discovery trail. And it was just highlighted in a few articles and magazines, and it's getting quite a bit of local and national attention. Because you don't find a lot of hospital and school districts coming together with an idea of collaborating around focusing on school readiness, especially for underserved populations, both in English and Spanish, and in implementing technology to focus on orienting our kids to education and outdoors. And if you haven't experienced the Discovery Trail, highly recommend it. There's nothing more beneficial than coming to work and seeing not only the families, but the kids, a lot of individuals using and accessing this new trail system. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. So today is a focus on what determines a healthy community. So in a hospital district, we look at things called health factors. And let me actually pause and take a step back for a minute. We, as a board, invited Chris Nesmith to come and present and speak to us at our board planning retreat, which we do every summer. It's one of the most important things we do as a hospital district. And we invited him to help us understand and give a perspective into what you measure, what's important to you as a school board, and try to see if there's anywhere of alignment, right? Are we this far off, or are we this close? Or are we really united in trying to work towards and accomplish the same things? So what we measure is what I'm going to show you today. And I think at the end, you'll start to see that we're not so different in what we're trying to accomplish. Well, first of all, when we think of health factors, there's 39 counties in the state of Washington, and we rank health factors as a determination on length and quality of life. And those factors are derivative by what we call health behaviors, clinical care, social and economic factors, and physical environment. Those four quadrants make up that determination on length and quality of life. Grays Harbor County ranks 36 out of 39. So when you're one of the unhealthiest counties in the state of Washington, on average, if you reside in Grays Harbor County, you'll die 3 years sooner than the state average. But that didn't happen overnight. We didn't become the unhealthiest county. It's generation, right? It's a lot about built environment, that our environment is not leading us to make healthy life choices or lifestyle or decisions. It's multi-generational, it's cultural, it's economic, many factors. But the only thing that the hospital district controls is one of those four quadrants. It's clinical care, which is access to services. In essence, as a hospital, the only thing we can do is build buildings and hire providers, right? And in essence, this is what it's saying. But everything that influences your determination on health factors is outside of your control. Health behaviors, physical environment, so housing and transit, diet and exercise, alcohol and drug use. So the question we ask ourselves as a board is, how do we get outside the walls of the hospital into the community and find partners that are willing to help to make a bigger and better impact for our residents? And so this is the slide that really determines health outcomes. So we rank 37 out of 39, and health factors 38 out of 39, and we fluctuate from 36 to 39. So this is an important statistic, and I just updated this last week for this presentation. These are statistics that we look at that are driven from what we call a community health needs assessment. Something we do every 3 years. We look at by zip code, we look at statistics, and here's just a few of them. And we rank ourselves as a county to the state and to US average. And then we also go down to the zip code by Elma, by McCleary, by origination to identify these statistics. I won't cover them all, but I will cover and highlight a few really important ones. Well, there's life expectancy right at the top. So Grace Harbor County relative to state and US average. If you look at physical inactivity, 22% versus Washington State. If you look at excessive drinking, 20% to 18%, drug overdose deaths, 48 to 29. Children in poverty, 19%. Access to parks, 44%. So I think you're getting the point. The statistics are not working in our favor. And if I was a resident in Grace Harbor County, I'd ask the question, what are we doing about it? What is the leadership of this community doing to change these statistics? Furthermore,
Quick question about the, before we go too far, but the, what was it, drug-related deaths? Is that gross head count for Grace Harbor County as opposed to other counties? Or is it per 100,000, per 10,000?
no, that's gross.
Okay, so we have a small population, but we're way, way high.
We have the highest incidence of opioid deaths, costs, and jail encounters per capita. Good question.
I just wanted to get the context of the.
Well, and this will probably give some even more statistics. Thank you. So if you look at, some of the statistics, what I'll share is as we start getting down to youth, but you look at one in 3 adults and 1 in 5 teens are obese, 87 or 80% do not eat enough fruits and vegetables. The state unemployment we're typically twice the state average of unemployment. You look at poverty. But then we started to look at youth, and there's some other statistics, and I didn't actually embed these, but I will share them. If you look at the percentage of youth between the age of 13 and 17 years old in Grace Harbor County, 23% have reported anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. And it's really unfortunate when they get into the healthcare system, it's because we're treating a disease, i.e. mental health. And by then, when they're caught in the system, it's really hard to get them out. So if you think about prevention of getting upstream from suicidal ideation, where does it originate? Where do you start? It's a very, very hard thing to accomplish. But one of the things that we set out in our goal of identifying is what is leading towards this feeling of anxiety, depression, and isolation. And we work with Grace Harbor Public Health Department to conduct this third space analysis, which is outside of school and home. Where do our youth go to gather safely? And we spent years just getting this report. And if you haven't seen it, I'm just putting a link in there. It's interactive. You can go in and work with that interaction. But I'm going to share a summary. In summary, there was 50 youth. So the first challenge is we didn't have enough youth participate in the survey. That was problem statement number 1, is the end value was too small. So we need to get better engagement across the county. But of the 50 youth that we did survey between different age groups, we said, where do you currently hang out? And this is, again, the entire county. Now, between the ages of 13 and 17 years old, we have about 1,700 youth between that age. I think it's increased. But specifically, of those, the 50 have identified where they hang out. Well, 11 said nowhere. Parks is very common, house, groups, the school, maybe a fun center, 2 at the YMCA. I think the point is you're seeing that there's not a lot of third spaces. So we brought in a third party, and what they did is they looked at this correlation. So let's look at the entire county and identify where there's pockets of significant youth or teens by population. And let's look at the predictive analytics of growth across the county. So what this slide shows you is if you look at rural Elma on the left side, it has the highest propensity of growth, which means we're seeing more families and more people move here. And we know that as a hospital district because we're growing and building and expanding to meet the growing need. So we're seeing more families move here. That's a good thing. Now, as a school board, you're probably saying, do you even have the infrastructure to support that growth? And that's for a separate topic. But what we're seeing is you look at the far right side of the correlation of the population density. So we don't see the density like you see in Aberdeen, but you see the significant growth. So what they do is they look at the dark blue area, which is downtown Elma or even rural Elma, and say there is a higher propensity of need for third spaces. And so they gave some short-term solutions, midterm options, and long-term options. And what we did then as the board started to say, well, what can we do to help to convene and bring together agencies that can address the lack of third spaces? And why is it important for us? Well, Commissioner Hooper will share that in a minute in closing. But this bullet point that I highlighted is long-term options is consider partnering with community-based organizations to build additional physical location in the Elma region. You know, that's an example of saying, can we work with the YMCA or Boys and Girls Club or different groups, faith-based or school or hospital, to create space for youth to gather safely, if not home and school? And you say, well, why is all that important? Again, I go back to the environment. I would say that we've done a lot of studies that say your determination on length and quality of life, only 20% is genetic, 80% is your environment, which means that how you grow up and who you grow up around determines your prevalence of disease and length and quality of life. So we, as a hospital, are stepping outside of the walls to focus on how are we helping to build that environment, that blueprint for a healthier future. And so the board, Teresa, I'll turn over to Drew to close out and entertain any questions you have. As we said, a very, very bold vision, but this is our vision in action.
Yeah, so I'll let you kind of read that. I don't need to read it to you. But the vision in action is where we look at movement that we can start making to actually see the vision come to fruition. So building the healthiest community in the nation. And we created that vision a number of years ago. And as we started first with looking at how do we help to just build the healthiest staff and to create the, a good work environment just within our walls. And at the same time as we built the hospital, creating that environment of play outside and fitness outside with the outdoor fitness equipment, it's been something that we've really looked at internally. Well, then it got to this place starting to look, okay, now that we kind of understand what we can do within our walls, we need to start looking at what we can do outside of the walls. And within that process of interviewing a lot of leaders in the community, right before COVID, actually right at the start of COVID, what we discovered is that there is a real desire, it seems, to have involvement in helping to improve the health of our youth. And if we want to have the healthiest community, we really need to have the healthiest kids. And it's something that I don't think any of us can do alone, that it takes partnership. And so our board has been very focused on working to develop relationships and partnerships where we can find organizations that have similar purpose. While maybe your focus isn't on building the healthiest kids because you want to build maybe the best well-rounded and work ready and smartest, brightest kids. At the same time, to make that happen, the healthier they are, the better you're going to achieve that. So trying to find those organizations where we maybe don't have the exact same vision, but we have a very common purpose. And that's where, in looking at, as you see here, partnering with city, schools, public health, we really see an opportunity for us to be able to work together for us to help you achieve what's important to you. And that through doing that, we will ultimately achieve what matters to us in building the healthiest population in the country.
So there's one small ask for consideration is our vision isn't a straight shot to the moon. It's the straight shot to the top of Mount Everest. We have to zig and zag and it's a journey. So as we kind of work on this journey together, the request is your consideration to join us for a collaborative board retreat that we would host in the Orquist Conference Center at the Wellness Center for a half of a day. It would be Thursday, August 8th. For 4 hours, we would provide the facilitation, all the costs and the food. To join us, Public Health would participate, Mike McNichol, the director, as well as the city, to come together to really dive deeper into the data, listening to school district, identify what's important to you and your data, what you're measuring, what you're tracking, what are your strategies and priorities, and where can we come together to support each other in those shared priorities to really set a shared measurement over the next 3 or 5 years that gives us the directive that then we can help support you, and vice versa. So that's an open invitation for consideration. We'll send a more formal invitation But it is our commitment as a district on behalf of the board to invite you for this, this first ever, first of its kind shared strategic plan between our two organizations. I know I'm here to talk about that invitation, but happy to entertain questions and also consider your time.
You guys are all looking. I'm curious, I don't disagree with focusing on youth. I think that's huge, in our community right now. But is there any focus on family? The
Yeah.
family unit?
Yeah.
For these kids?
So it's a really good question. It's very hard to unpack, but I'll be brief. By saying, well, if you're focusing on youth, are seniors not important? Of course. We have end of life. It was an incredible hospice program. And we really focus on the whole spectrum. We set up a mental health clinic as an example, to focus on the whole spectrum from youth to seniors, to focus on reducing ER utilization and creating access to counseling services and engaging with schools. The family is important, but I think what we look at as the family is how do we get into the house? Because if you're a family that you look at your parents as they're disengaged in their health plan, then we have a big problem. So here's an example. If you see your parent opening a bag of Doritos for 18 years, what are you going to teach your kids? We have more fast food restaurants per capita, and it's not because of tourism. We have a lifestyle based on that family, where within the house, they're not having those lifestyle choices that promotes that next generation to live that trajectory. So for us as a board, there's a lot of evidence saying, well, if you're going to make a change, you're going to go to the parents to make that change? No, you're not. But you can get to the youth, because what you find out is kids will have the ability to help influence and change their parents to impact the family, the household. But we're also seeing is broken families, broken households, the lack of mentorship, right? The lack of infrastructure within the house. And what happens is then we start to see the mental health and the breakdown. And it's a very, very important question, but the short of it is we do look at the entire family, but we're focused on the youth to make an impact.
And I'll add to that just from a personal story, which I think is actually my wife's story, but it's one that I think kind of also helped in recognition that with a focus on children, it becomes a focus on family. And that is that, my in-laws were chain smokers from the time they were really like 10, right? They would smoke constantly. Well, my wife was 14 years separate from her nearest sibling. And so she was pretty much kind of like a more or less alone in the house with almost like an only child. And so she got a lot of attention that her siblings always, make sure they let her know that she got all that attention. But one of the things that she did at 4 years old, she has no idea why, her parents have no idea why, is she started grabbing the cartons of cigarettes out of the freezer and flushing them down the toilet. Well, even back then, cigarettes weren't, if you're getting rid of that at a time, that's not an inexpensive thing. And what's interesting is at 4 years old, she got both of her parents to stop smoking. Now, why was that the case? What motivated her to do that? I don't know. But what's interesting is that cigarette addiction is one of the most difficult addictions to quit. And yet a 4-year-old got 2 lifetime smokers in their late 30s, early 40s to just stop. And they never smoked again, right? So I think about if a 4-year-old could have that impact in her house, then if we start to teach our kids what it is to live in a healthy way, they really do have the ability to impact the household.
Share some statistics as well as the Grays Harbor County. We have 50% less providers per capita. So if you think about that access to care, but we also acknowledge that we have even a smaller percentage of people that access primary care. And if you could say, well, if you went and polled and asked a lot of residents, why don't you go to primary care? It's like, well, I don't need it. I feel great.
Yeah.
Well, the issue then, and this is what we see, is until you're not, right? Until it's broken. And by then I have too many stories to share that's very unfortunate. But the reality is that if our parents or those families aren't accessing the preventative side, then they only know to come when it's not working. And they're teaching the kids the same thing. And so we're trying to overcome that fear of participation. I mean, we do the same for our cars. We go in for annual oil changes. We don't wait until the engine's moved. But we don't take the same investment in ourselves. So we're trying to overcome that cultural component of resistance to participate. Because we don't want to be good at disease management. We don't want to build a bigger hospital. We have to. We want to focus more on prevention and getting upstream.
Substance abuse, part of that.
Yeah, so we worked with the Attorney General years ago in the opioid epidemic to help Washington State get a settlement of $500 million, of which we, based on this percentage of per capita, have the highest incidence of drug use per capita. Unfortunately, the funding algorithm was flawed, and who got the most money was based on population, not based on the actual incident. So unfortunately, Grays Harbor County, who has the biggest prevalence of opioid addiction, got the least amount per capita. And that's something that we advocate and campaign on about how the model is broken. Those that need it the most are getting the least. Unfortunately, but fortunately, we've been able to access other mechanisms of opioid treatment. An example is we have a medication-assisted treatment clinic that we stood up from a $2 million grant. We have 90% of our primary care providers waivered with Suboxone. We did all that under the opioid crisis 6 years ago. Unfortunately, opioid is only the tip of the iceberg. Everything else underneath that is mental health. So though we have the ability to treat and interface with the addiction, we're focusing now on mental health to start to get upstream before it becomes the addiction. Well, thank you very much for your
Yeah, thank
time.
you.
We'll give the meeting back to you and
Yeah.
then send out a formal invitation. And before we lock in and confirm the date, the time, the facilitation and everything, we'll look to make sure that this is aligned with your directive and hopefully we can do something really exceptional together.
We're excited.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Honored to be part.
Next on the agenda. APP report. Jeff.
This report we do every year on the two structures that were funded through the state. The purpose room at the elementary and the 4 additional classrooms. Really nothing has much changed with the buildings other than like small, like slow deterioration over time, but we haven't made any major improvements to them or we don't have any like pretty good shape for things. Multi-purpose room, we're going to be starting to think about a roof in the near future.
Those like roofs are at top of
Roofs are
our
a thing in
list
Washington.
here. Yeah, big
So
thing.
That one gets
Keeps
hit
out the
really
rain.
way.
It really does.
That crazy storm we had, I saw water at places I've never seen because it literally like went up and under use. But yeah, do you guys have any questions about
The only thing that I noticed is that the condition seemed to get better. Is that, is it go, is that how that number works? Cause from since 2019, it goes 77.98 and it goes up to 86.15. Is that inverse? I guess.
Where's
Like, what is the percent?
Zero.
Is it supposed to be a 0 or supposed to be 100, I guess? What's the highest you can get if you're in the best, 100%? Or is it 0?
no, I think
100's good, because based off the condition rating, it says 90% good.
Keeps
good,
me
so
good.
So yeah,
I would say we did do some furnishings.
okay, yeah, that's kind of what I figured, because there's some
High
stuff.
school you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah, so there was a few things that actually graded higher.
yeah, that makes sense.
And then, like when the you have to have a BCA every 3 years.
Okay,
And that's kind of like when you're doing it the following year, you kind of like, they're kind of like,
yeah,
they're hired to do that. So
like there's,
you look at what they say
Yeah.
and then they'll ask you questions like, have you approved anything? And there was some things that were
furniture, electronics, probably.
Yeah,
Like
stuff
AV
that got
stuff.
us downgraded before, like stuff on, walls that we have since, made better, stuff like that.
And we have to do this the life of,
And we did the new camera system.
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
I saw that.
so yeah, so I think it's I want to say 30 years or 20 years that we report on it, so. I think our next certified is due in 2028, so.
This was funded in 96, right?
this
Yeah.
fall.
Board accepted date,
Was
1996.
28. And that's, they weren't on the same years for the DCA, but now they are. So that was one thing that has gone down a little bit.
Are you looking at, which one are you looking at? There's
Oh,
two
you're on
different
the other one.
reports, so I
Yeah.
have the,
Yeah.
I have the addition, which is 96, and the high
And
school
and
is.
for the year of the building, 97 is that one. Our score is above average.
Do they give you a ballpark of where you're supposed to be at all or anything? I mean, I know I'm asking all these questions. but-
Yeah.
I mean, they basically do by saying good, fair, or poor. I just kind of curious, I guess, basically. Where most places
I
end
think
from the
there
years,
was I have seen something that showed,
like an average or.
yeah, like average by years, but I don't have that.
They probably do it out on their website, probably compared to.
Yeah, when you look at the reports in ICOs.
Yeah, it's kind of,
It'll give you some benchmark type stuff.
so it looks like it's color coded too. It still has us in green.
And
at the
I
top.
did go to a training to learn how to do condition
Mm-hmm.
assessments. And the thought was like, well, I can't be a BCA to do my own. But
Right,
then there was a thought like the neighboring school district had a guy that did it too. And
they can
you
switch,
could
yeah,
do
you
each
can swap.
other's. We never,
Do you know if Montesano has anybody?
I don't think some of the people that I don't look at those.
Anymore? Yeah, it's kind of how that usually goes.
Evidently, this profession is kind of stressful. I didn't notice, but there's times, right? So,
Doing great, Jeff.
but yeah, no, our buildings are. You're up, like I said, the other day at high school, in 1986. Somebody was from Montesano was like, it seems so new, but I guess it's been a while. I'm like, pushing almost 40 years. So,
Crazy how time
so
flies.
if you look at the building before that, got about 50 years out of it. I know they lost a little bit longer now, but
I mean, just look at we call it the new gym still.
the new gym,
The new gym. It's not so new.
but they are going like. Great. Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions for me?
They're not that old. And I helped pack
Right.
desks over to that building to move in. Right, Eric?
That's old. That's us.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, there we go. Lots of life.
Lots of-
Lots of it.
But it
Lots of
sees,
rough
it sees a lot of teenagers hanging out of there.
Eric, I said, you're old enough to know and young enough to probably still remember it. So what was,
My timeline.
where this part of the building was, what was here before it was parking lot, because I was just trying to like solve a mystery. It's a fun one, but. But yeah, I was looking at the demo plans and there was a house and
That's
an
like
apartment
the-
complex where the staff parking lot is.
The brown apartments.
Yeah, so like sometimes you need to know things
Enforce
like
that
that when
from
you got
first
weird
approval.
stuff going on, like what used to be,
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's under this building.
Some really big trees.
Stuff that keeps me up at night. So, but yeah, the ones that were funded to the state, knock on wood, we've done all the reporting, so when we ask them for money, they can comply and things like that. We started building some stuff.
that'd be nice.
So,
Thanks for
Alright.
keeping.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, I got about 29-year-olds just playing ball without their coach, so
Get out of here.
we'll be done at 8 o'clock tonight, under the light.
All right.
See you.
You got
See
a
you
great
later.
night
Thanks,
for
Jeff.
it.
All right, now the long one on the list. Policies, 4,000s. Where do we start on that?
I have a few notes.
Okay,
The first set is 4320, 4330. Lost just combined them into one, so we look at updating the 4320 and deleting.
did a little bit of research on those policies, combination. And yeah, seems pretty standard. Nobody changed any of the verbiage. They just basically bam together. So they, nothing too much going on there. So we could probably move those forward. Unless somebody else doesn't.
4010 has already been put into 40,000 information program, so we just looked at getting rid of that one.
Okay.
4230, contact with students, 4314 and 4315. They're just gone.
Is there any explanation to any of that? I couldn't figure it out. Most districts kept 4315, which 4315 is release of information concerning sexual and kidnapping offenders, which I thought was interesting that it was being suggested to be deleted.
It's just not on Boston's
Okay.
policies anymore.
Okay,
No explanation.
from what I could see, nobody's dropped it. And some of the boards, there's some of the districts that follow Gloucester's policies to the T when they come out, it's still there. So I'm assuming we still use that policy. But that was a question for Mr. Nesmith.
I wonder if there's a,
A legal
if
portion
it
to
puts
it?
you a little bit more at a legal risk. If something doesn't get disseminated, because I mean, ultimately, you're supposed to be sharing information that's not really. You don't
Right.
own the information,
That's why I wrote
And
down
so-
who's the authority on it.
so you're, if. Somehow we don't get the information, but we're supposed to have the information or we fail to communicate it, it feels like it puts us at
What's the impact to
a
us?
risk.
Yeah.
It still feels like it may be best. I can understand why it may be best practice, but I'm just wondering if there's like a legal.
Could we reach out to legal and ask that question? Yeah, because from what I could tell, it's still there and the verbiage is exactly the same as prior, so. But it would be nice to know what legal has to say before we do anything on that one, so. The other ones were kind of, the contacts with students and notification of threats of violence and harm, those ones seem to have disappeared, which is not from ours or just in general, from districts, so, we can take a look at that, or we can leave them. There's no harm in leaving the policies. Depends on what we want to do going forward. And remember, it's just discussion, so we don't even have to actually do anything with them. We can just leave them as is.
I'm honestly good with leaving them as is for right now.
And I also feel like we don't have what we're selling.
Yeah.
If we don't have any input, I may have a take on it, so.
Well, regardless, even if we
We'll
put
have-
them on new business, we
We
would
can
have to
deal with
vote,
it
yeah,
later.
we'd have to
Yeah,
vote on them and stuff, so. But we can just hold off on those. My intention was just to go through these in discussion and since it was me presenting, that's why I actually moved it till when I was here and thought we were gonna have everybody, but it's always works out that way. Somebody gets sick and that's how it goes.
On the notification of threats, I mean, that is a practice that we do in the district
Mhm.
currently. So it feels like we would need some policy to stay in place if that would
Right.
continue to be a practice, but maybe.
What I'm curious about the 4314 is whether we cover it in another policy, like some of these are match policies.
Mhm.
The 4,000 is community related, correct? So these match with community and there's also student related stuff in there that's already in our policy, so it may just have.
Might just be redundant.
Yes, exactly.
well,
So-
we can also find out if that does have a match, and then if it does, make sure that there isn't anything that's left off that we don't want to include, maybe do a revision.
It also doesn't hurt to have.
Right.
two different-
No, that's where I was
Right.
saying earlier, like, we
Yeah.
can do nothing with them and leave them,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt any. I mean, they've stood for, what, last revision on the 4315 was 2017, and then just the one we were talking about, 4314. 2019, yeah,
2019.
so they've been around. So I don't think there's any harm there. Just like I said, I wanted to go through these because we were going through each
Mhm.
series, so we'll go through just like
Sure.
this. And then the next, if we're done talking about those, the next series is policies available to adopt.
Which those will be.
Two are encouraged, and that's effective communication and limiting immigration enforcement in schools. And one is essential for school safety and security systems, however, I'm a security officer.
Yeah, it talks about RSO all over the place in it. Again, that's stuff we don't have to do anything with. We can leave them alone. We can leave it as is. A lot of districts, I mean, they're so new that nobody's really, there's only a couple that have touched those policies.
I guess I'm more inclined to leave as is for right now.
Anybody have any objections to that? I can move it forward or we can leave it.
Jamie, do you mean not add them in? Or add them in?
When,
Good question, Steph. I guess my thought would be to table these three for right now.
These three, I would really actually like to hear, be able to discuss with Brian as well.
Yeah, and bring
Because it
back.
does talk about the RSO, it talks about enforcement, and I think
Right.
his insight in his profession would be very
I-
viable for. us.
And I have questions on the immigration enforcement stuff, that I'd like to look into a little bit further myself before I make any type of decision.
I'm in the same camp with the immigration because the wording is very pointed
Yes, it
and
is.
it is very driven. I don't want to take it lightly, so I think more research is necessary. I just wanted to bring these since they are part of the 4,000s and have us take a look at them.
fair enough.
So we'll keep those off for now. And then the last one is the 4,500 unmanned aerial systems and model aircraft. And our policy does not model the WASDA policy, correct? Because ours is from the insurance company.
I think we circled this one before and talked about putting it on when we got here, so, yeah.
Looking at it, I kind of like our insurance company's model over WASDA's model. The fact that WASDA wants us to regulate the airspace is not actually lawful, so I'm kind of confused about that. Because it says in and around, and if something flies into our airspace, that's not our authority, so.
It's definitely out of our lane.
Yeah, so I'm like, what are they talking about?
Hmm.
So we can just leave that one alone. All right.
Great.
That was quick and painless, even though it seemed like a lot. All right, anything else before I move on? Anybody for public comment?
To come back to the policies as a public comment.
Give me a second. Let me read the thing just so
Yep, got it.
we're good to go.
Got it.
Did you write your name down on the public comment thing?
No, I didn't.
Do you want to do that? And then I'll let Megan go first, since she wrote her name down.
Sure. Here's that.
All right, really fast for both of you, just so that I get this out of the way. We welcome your comments, which are very important to us. All comments are obviously limited to 3 minutes. It's helpful for the board if you give us your name. Please address your remarks to the chairperson. Note that we will not be entering into dialogue at this time. The purpose of this agenda item is for you, the public, to inform us, the board, about your views. So please, Megan. Welcome.
Thanks, Megan Porter. I just want to say thank you for adding the link to the PDFs on the policies that are marked up. That's helpful for people when you're doing the first and second readings. And then this agenda has some great presentation from kids in your schools, about kids in your schools, and about the buildings that house your schools. It's really disappointing that there's not a single administrator here. And so that was kind of, I was wanted to say there's no administrators here to hear those, or even on line right now watching to hear these great things that are happening. And that's not helpful for getting less toxicity in the school district. So that was all. That's all I can do.
Thank you for your comments.
I'll start on just a general comment of reaction to the limiting of immigration enforcement subject. And that simply being, it seems as though if we have, I have no idea how many of our students might be subject to concern for it. But even if it's just a few, it seems as though having a policy in place to provide them some safe zone sort while we're studying to learn would be good for their learning environment and their general.
Thank you. All right, anybody else have any comments? All right. Again, thank you for your comments. We do appreciate it. Sorry that it's freezing cold in here.
Are you,
Maybe.
are not?
All right, no unfinished business, new business, approval of the Ajax agreement.
I'll move for the approval of AJAC agreement.
I'll second.
Then move a second to approve the Ajax agreement. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. Discussion and approval of policy 5411 staff vacation first reading. I do want to draw our attention to the fact that we did add the policies so that the public could see them as we review them.
This just updates the hours and days received to match your CDs.
And they do obviously match the CBA. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll move for the discussion, no, for the approval of policy 5411 staff vacation first reading.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve policy 5411 staff vacation first reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Discussion and approval of policy 6212 charge cards first reading.
This is an update.
1999.
I saw that.
I'll move for the approval of policy 6212 charge cards first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve our policy 6212 charge cards first reading. Is there any discussion? I did notice that I have no problem with as is, but I did notice a few districts had actually added some verbiage after the superintendent will establish procedures for the issuance and use of charge cards, and then they added, where'd it go? Subject to final board approval of payments.
Well, that's through the vouchers.
Yeah, I know. I just thought it was interesting that they reinforced the fact. I'm okay if we don't, because it actually says it up in the paragraph ahead, but for some reason, a few of them had moved it down. Okay, either way. Because it does say the superintendent or designee is responsible for the authorization and control of the use of credit card funds subject to final board approval of payments in the middle, which is interesting.
Feels like it's.
Yeah,
there,
it's just
so-
redundant.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Approval of resolution 062425 WIAA resolution. That's just general approval to be a member, right? Okay.
I'll move the approval of resolution 062425 WIAA resolution.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 062425 WIAA resolution. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, board reports.
Actually, what Chris would like me to bring to you guys is for the learning blocks, and Ken is gonna fill you in on what's going on with those, and she's setting them up.
The day in the life is on Friday. I'll send out emails tomorrow with your student and your schedule.
8 to noon like last time.
Meet in the
8:24.
middle school office.
Are we able to do lunch again like we did at high school?
Yes.
Okay.
You really love that lunch?
What?
You really love that lunch? No, I'm just teasing you.
Actually, it really wasn't that bad. I actually had a really
It's a
good
good
lunch.
lunch.
It was a really good lunch. I gravitated toward pizza, but that's what I did in high school. So I guess
Well,
creature of habit.
habit,
So I don't know
right.
what to tell you. Yeah, I mean, we just heard about it tonight from Josh. So I guess I'm the pizza guy.
Mhm.
Not quite Doritos, but at least pizza. Does anybody else like to go? Anything to share?
Just a reminder that April 19th is this enhanced Elma citywide cleanup day. I assume some school groups are doing some things, but. I think. Eric, do you know where you meet? You meet at the chamber and get all of your garbage apparatus-y things and then get some maps and get dispersed out and might be a gorgeous day to clean up the community.
It's supposed to be nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of nice, if you're at home tomorrow and around, there is a soccer game come out. Love to have everybody. I mean, Forks is coming all this way to play Elma, so I mean, it is Forks coming all this way. So as long as we have a referee, we'll be good. So should be a good day. I'm really excited for the day in the life on Friday. So for those maybe listening or listening to this later, day in the life is where we get to basically go with a student in the middle school and see their day as a middle schooler. So from 8 a.m. from start to noon, and join them for lunch if we want to, and if not, there's kind of a separation there. And then kind of just take it all in. The reel that I talked about earlier when our guest was up speaking earlier, that's really what we're trying to accomplish is the reel. Get out and see what our kids are doing in the district and see it firsthand, unfiltered, which we definitely got a good dose of at the high school. So I'm hopeful the same will be at the middle school. Yes.
If you have a senior, and you feel like you would like to put your name on a list, April 14th is the senior parent night meeting. My brain's not working, at the library, 6 o'clock. You sign up for some fun senior activities.
Anything else? Oh, yeah. Ready for some better weather, all right?
It's coming,
It's coming, right?
coming.
No more water. All right. Since there is no further business, I adjourn the meeting.
You have to have a motion.
No, we don't, but if you guys want to, you can.
What? You just wanted to take control
It
of
was
that
just
moment?
the boys, pomp and circumstance,
Yeah.
that's it.
I was getting there one night to like
He's
have
gonna be
a
really
moment.
upset when he comes back and sees.
You've been overruled. Whack.
Why I didn't do it when